So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is our 6.5, presentation of the current status and next steps for the Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan, BVGSP, and B, consideration and approval of resolution authorizing the Board of Directors of the Lake County Watershed Protection District acting as the Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency, BVGSA, to file a grant application for the implementation of the BVGSP and authorize the chair of the Board of Directors to sign. With that, we have Marina Delagiani here, and she will give the presentation.
Thank you so much, Chair Crandall. Good afternoon, Board. I am excited to be here, almost as excited I am about all the acronyms in my item for the board and in the entire water world. So yes, Marina Delagiani is here, Deputy Director of the Lake County Watershed Protection District. I also serve as the lead for our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee, also referred to as GSPAC. There will not be a quiz at the end, I promise. But I'm here for a two-pronged approach item. I have an update on our Big Valley GSP, Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and then I'm also seeking support and approval from the board for us to file a grant application under the California Department of Water Resources Sustainable Groundwater Management grant program, which will be due to the state if approved by the board by December 16th. So we have a very quickly approaching timeline. And I apologize, this may be repetitive for some of you, but it's never a bad day to revisit our groundwater, right? So as folks may be aware, we have one priority groundwater basin as outlined by California Department of Water Resources, DWR Bulletin 118. So we have a variety of different groundwater basins located throughout the county, but the state has only prioritized one as a medium basin. And with this, through the California Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, we are tasked with doing a variety of things for this groundwater basin. The overall goal of SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, is to ensure sustainability in different groundwater basins throughout the state, their priority basins, they being the state, until 2042 and looking forward. So just a little bit of background of our Big Valley Groundwater Basin. Our Big Valley Groundwater Basin lies south of Clear Lakes and includes Kelsey Creek and Adobe Creek, which both drain into Clear Lake. It is a source of water for the community of Kelseyville and Big Valley Rancheria. It is the largest agricultural area in our entire community, and it is about 6 miles wide and 8 miles long. So with this, again, SGMA outlines the framework that we at the local level need to take to ensure sustainability. We did have a very quick timeline to develop our groundwater sustainability plan and groundwater sustainability agency. Just as a refresher for those folks, our groundwater sustainability agency is the local authority that oversees our groundwater basin, and our board of directors of the Watershed Protection District serve as our groundwater sustainability agency, and these are our friends up here, including Supervisor Paiska. We also developed a groundwater sustainability plan advisory committee, and these are a variety of stakeholders that have the expertise, knowledge of our groundwater basin. So I appreciate the efforts and knowledge that our Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee, our GSPAC, provided us during the process of developing our GSP. Now, with our GSP development and the planning, we did have a public-facing process. We had over 36 meetings that are all archived on our Water Resources YouTube page and Water Resources website. So with these are all the materials on there. We also had additional public meetings, open houses, and this is continued on now towards the implementation. That is a key component of this update is we are now transitioning from the planning of our Groundwater Sustainability Plan, GSP, now towards the implementation aspect. So again, SGMA provides us that local framework of how do we develop a GSP, what are key components of a GSP, and then the process for adopting a GSP. So just to share, we have the Groundwater Sustainability Agency for our Big Valley Basin did adopt unanimously the GSP. And just to go over very quickly the steps that the state has outlined for adopting the GSP, One, we prepared a notice of intent to adopt. This was sent out to all the stakeholders, including the states and other entities, saying, hey, we are in the process of planning for our GSP. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, or if you want to be involved in the process, here's how you can do so. We had the final public comment period on the draft GSP, which spanned from November 12th to December 3rd, 2021. It almost does not seem last year, but it is. We posted the final GSP once it was adopted by the board on the week of January 3rd, 2022. And then the adoption of the GSP again went before the board on January 11th, 2022. All of that recordings and meeting material is archived on Granicus and then also our Water Resources website along with the state portal now. We were able to meet that deadline by submitting the GSP. We did have a 75-day public comment period that was hosted by the state. We also had multiple public comment periods that were hosted by us at the Water Resources Department, and that began immediately after the GSP was submitted. We did receive a few public comments, additional public comments, and again, all those public comments, including the comments that we collected during our own additional public comment period, are archived on the state portal, which I have a link to in the next few slides. And then we are currently in the state review period of our GSP. That began after the 75-day public comment period. The state is not only reviewing our GSP, but all the other GSPs that were not critically overdraft basin GSPs throughout the state. So they have a 2-year time frame of getting back to us. Now, after that 2-year time frame, which I don't have on this list here, is if they have any comments or corrections that we need to make, that opens up another 180 days for us to make any revisions or make any respond to any comments that the state may have before they officially approve or disapprove of our GSP. So we're in the waiting period right now as to whether or not they're going to approve our GSP, but it is still expected of us to move forward with the implementation of our GSP. They don't want us to wait 2 years. There are some low-hanging fruits that I'm going to outline here that we have made progress on and that we're going to continue to make progress on to ensure the sustainability of our groundwater basin. So if you don't want to read the plethora of pages that is involved in our GSP, if you need some nighttime reading, I highly encourage it. If you need a hard copy, we're more than happy to print such out at Water Resources. But again, the online link, if you want to save some trees, is on the DWR portal. So the first part of the GSP was describing the basin conditions. So what water sources are used in the basin and what are the basin conditions related to those uses. Defining the basin sustainability. So what does sustainability mean to us in our specific Big Valley groundwater basin? Here, the state wanted to see what are going to be the boots on the ground. What are some of our data gaps that we have? What are our missing pieces? What are we planning on doing to ensure sustainability? And this is what we outline as our PMA, or project and management actions and implementation plans. So this is really focused on what we're seeking funding for from the state. And then, of course, developing and adopting the GSP. Will this plan meet our sustainability goals? And this is where we leverage the resource and the expertise from our stakeholders, and then also bringing this before the board and engaging with the community to make sure that our plan is as best as it can be. Moving forward, here is just the link of our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So if you follow this link here, the DWR portal, and if you're following and playing with this tool, not only is our GSP on here, but all the other GSPs that were submitted to the state, including the critically overdraft basins. Again, we only have one plan that was submitted for our county, which is our Big Valley. If you have questions or concerns using this tool, just give us a call at Water Resources, and we're more than happy to walk you through it. But here you see all the legal documentations, the affidavit, our public comment, our notice of intent, everything that is related to our GSP, including all of the plan documents and appendices, is all on this one portal right here, and it will take you directly to our GSP for our Big Valley Basin. All right, so moving on to why I'm here today also is requesting support and approval for our department and the Big Valley GSA to submit a grant application under the California Department of Water Resources Sustainable Groundwater Management Grant. This is their implementation. Just as a reminder, a few years ago, I came to your board to request approval to apply for the DWR SGM grant planning, which we were awarded a little under $1.4 million $0 cost shares for the planning of our groundwater sustainability plan. So this was a huge appreciative effort and support that was provided from the state. I just want to reiterate the support that the state has been able to provide us during this entire time. Again, they outline the rules and regulations we need to follow, but they leave it to us at the local level for the expertise to actually do the boots on the ground, the planning and the implementation. With that, they do have resources that we could leverage and that we can utilize, this being one of them. So the SGM implementation round 2 solicitation opened on October 4th, 2022. This was for eligible applicants, which our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan and our basin is an eligible applicant because we are a medium priority basin. The round 1 solicitation was for critically overdraft basins, so I just want to make that clear. And this solicitation will close on December 16th. So as you can see, we have a very short window to apply for this grant funding. So this round 2 will provide over $200 million from the general fund and Proposition 68 from the state. I just want to mention how competitive this grant application is, and from my conversations with the state and other GSAs around the state, this seems to be one of our last funding opportunities to actually do the implementation. Our objective is to make the implementation of our GSP as fiscally appropriate and feasible for the users in this basin, since of course the state really pressures on local control, but this also includes local funding if you get down to it. So that is why one of the importance of us to apply for this grant opportunity is such a high priority for our department. So here, I apologize, this is very, very small. It's very difficult for me to even read it, so I'm not going to go down to the specifics of it. I want to reiterate that this is the draft of what we're planning on applying for. So similar to how we develop a GSP, how we develop a groundwater sustainability agency, and how we comply with SGMA, the state also has very stringent guidelines, like any grant opportunity they provide, on what we can apply for and what we are eligible for applying for. So we are utilizing the expertise of our consultants who have applied for multiple grants. We went through the purchasing code for their assistance on this, and they're helping us develop our grant application that we will be submitting, fingers crossed, to the state. And with this, we're highlighting 3 different key components. Component 1 is probably one of the most important in terms of fiscally feasible for our users in the basin. This covers GSA operation and SGMA compliance. So this is basically what we have to do. So similar to our GSP, we have to do annual reporting, we have to do updates to the state. If we do receive comments from the state on our GSP, this will help cover any costs associated with responding to those comments. This covers staff time, which of course we know Water Resources does a plethora of things. So this helps our department cover that time, and especially if we need to bring in additional expertise on that. This also helps us with long-term GSA fee studies. So of course, we'll have to do some sort of feasibility studies down the road to ensure that we can provide suitable funding for the long term of this project that is required from the state. Component 2 is a really fun one. This will help us address any data gaps and enhance decisions. So we have an idea of what the state will possibly provide comments on. Based off of discussions with some of our stakeholders, we've hit some of their high-level priorities and projects, and we've outlined all of this in the GSP. So this should not be new knowledge to anyone. If you're familiar with the GSP, we hinted at some of these, and again, this will set us up to be as competitive as possible with this funding opportunity that we are planning on moving forward to. And then component 3, this is the boots on the ground. The state has a huge emphasis moving forward into our 4th consecutive dry year on recharge projects. So how can we appropriately capture the water that is falling into us and recharge it for our environment? So we have a few high priority projects here. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that we are intending to apply for. Again, all of this is still in draft form, so I don't want you to get too hunkered down on the numbers or the exact form. We're still making some revisions based off of key conversations that we have in the next week or two with some of our GSPAC members and stakeholders. The biggest one that we're looking at approaching is our Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project, hopefully to get the planning and the implementation funding supported from that. So overall, we're asking for a little under $6 million for the SGM grant. We've had very close conversations with the state, leaning on their expertise and their recommendation. Again, we want to make this as competitive as possible, so still fine-tuning the numbers. And again, I just want to reiterate the support that we've received from the state. Not only did we receive the initial SGM planning grant, but we've also received facilitation support services, technical support services, and just overall guidance and support from the state. They've been a key resource for us to utilize as we're complying with SGMA. Now here I am on the second part of the agenda item, so I'm going to pass it over to the chair if you would like me to continue or how you would like to tackle this next part.
Any questions in the meantime, or, all right, go ahead and continue.
Cool beans. All right. So the next part of the agenda, I am kindly requesting consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the Board of Directors of the Lake County Watershed Protection District, acting as our Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency, to file a grant application for the implementation of our Big Valley GSP and authorize the Chair of the Board of Directors to sign. We do have the resolution here copied. You may notice that it looks very different than what we are used to seeing in terms of resolutions, but this was the template that is required by the state. They do state in the grant guidelines that if we deviate from this resolution that authorizes the GSA and for us to apply, then we risk possibly losing points on our application. So this is something that I would not like to deviate from, because the more points that we lose, the less chance we have of receiving funding. So this is the resolution here. Of course, we filled it in to cater to our Big Valley GSA and our grant application. But here's the resolution. Of course, I always like to leave my contact information, resources regarding our Big Valley GSP, and if you have any questions, give us a call, 707-263-2344, or come see us on the third floor. So I can go back to this slide, or whichever slide is preferred.
Supervisors Sabatier.
Thank you for the update, and also for this. I sure hope that we can get the funding. What I really like is the third part about the water recharge. I know that SGMA as a whole has added a huge impact to water resources in order to conduct all the services needed to get the report, submitting it to the state, following all the mandates. But at the same time, there is a coincidence of it happens right during one of our really worst droughts, and we're not quite sure when we're going to get out of it. So I think it's kind of a perfect storm of mandates that have come down from the state for us to really watch our water and make sure that there's longevity for our agricultural industry. We just got a crop report. That crop report requires us to watch our water to make sure that that can continue. But anyways, component number 3 is the water recharge. I know you've talked about Proposition 68. Mm-hmm. Has Prop 1 been unleashed so that we can access? Because that was all about storage.
Yeah, so with this grant funding, again, this is from general funds from the state. They do utilize some of Prop 1. That was also in the planning grant as well. So they are pulling different pools of money from Prop 1, Prop 68 to utilize, and that is why there is such an emphasis on storage.
Good. Okay, no, I appreciate this. Hope we can get the full amount that we're looking for, and looking forward to the next updates.
Thank you.
I think you covered what I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask it just to clarify. With the funding that we're applying for, that you're applying for, is it going to assist? Because, we have a myriad of different projects going on, and I'm pretty sure Water Resources budget has to expend that funding towards those. This will clear that up so that some of the other projects can go under general descriptions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so this ask will cover our compliance with SGMA. So on top of our compliance with SGMA, we also do groundwater monitoring for other groundwater basins. That does take up a lot of staff time and other resources as well, but this will cover the cost for our compliance with SGMA, which, as you can see, it adds up. We have to do all of task 1, task 2, and then, the state is really emphasizing recharge projects. So if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it sooner down the road. So,
thank you for that. Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you. I personally appreciate the redundancy as the new kid on the block, and I also appreciate you weren't available yesterday because of another commitment. So I want to thank Director De Leon for pointing me to my homework, which I did attempt to do yesterday to catch up. Certainly, it's an interesting law, a heavy lift, especially in a small rural county with only a medium impacted thing. SGMA was the hot button issue at CSAC, and especially where I'm from, the Central Valley. Certainly the need for some form of groundwater management is self-evident down there. However, the devil is in the details, and I think if I discovered the acronym correctly yesterday, it's PMAs, Projects and Management Actions.
Correct.
So on this particular spreadsheet, and I do appreciate it, I do notice some of those things starting to take some shape, including some form of a well management program, including an Adobe Creek conjunctive use project I'm not familiar with, and then a short, long-term demand management actions. So just for my own benefit, and maybe for those who are just tuning in, again, everyone says let's save water, but when we get down to projects and management actions, I think that's where those who have not had the opportunity to tune in just yet, including myself, may express some concerns. So I certainly appreciate the need to get some money to do what has been wrought by the state. On the other hand, if we're seeking money to do things that may end up being inconvenient or disadvantageous to some of our Big Valley residents, my need for speed isn't necessarily shared by the state. So can you just highlight for my benefit and for those tuning in what the specific PMAs are on this ask and how they help us comply with the state?
Yeah, so PMAs are project management actions. That is a requirement of our groundwater sustainability plan. And again, that's unique to each different groundwater basin. Our PMAs for our Big Valley Basin were not pulled from thin air. I wish it was that easy, but it was not. So this took over a year of coordination with our stakeholders, with our consultants, doing some boots on the ground, studying, modeling, et cetera. So these PMAs are all outlined in a specific table under our GSP. There's a whole chapter and section on it that outlined what a PMA is, how do we get to identifying the high priority project management actions, and how they're actually going to benefit our groundwater basin. So the PMAs that we have listed here, again, were pulled from our GSP. We can't really meander from that unless we have a good reason. So again, the PMAs that we have listed here, the number one priority in our ask, and it's going to be a hefty lift if we do get the funding for this, but the Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project, we at the Water Resources Department have been looking at this. Additional entities have been trying to seek funding for this, and a lot of interest is focused on actually doing the planning and the development and implementation of our Adobe Creek Conjunctive Use Project. That was identified as one of the priority PMAs in our GSP. But basically what a PMA is again, the state wants to see, okay, so you did all this planning, you outlined some data gaps, some, different discrepancies in sustainability in your groundwater basin. What are you missing? What are the impacts to water availability in your groundwater basin? And looking forward to 2042, that is the deadline. When I brought to the board our GSP for adoption, I said that this is just the start of it. We had, a year to plan for our GSP, but now we're actually doing the boots on the ground. And that's what our PMA is. When I say boots on the ground, I mean, what are we actually going to do? What are we going to construct? What are we going to see as that recharge, as that capture of our groundwater in that basin to ensure that we have water moving forward and continued on throughout.
So to the well management, for example, if there's a trigger event, well, we're in a third or fourth year of a drought emergency, I'm assuming well management would include at some point in order that certain wells be taken out of production?
I don't want to say just exactly yet what that would be. That's what we're trying to decide, and that's going to take coordination between domestic well owners. So we have a seat on our Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee for a domestic well owner. We have public meetings. This will also take very close coordination with the state, other county departments such as environmental health, who actually takes in these well permits, and CDD as well. So this is going to take how that's specifically going to look, but that's what we're asking. That's what we're asking the money for, is how to do these studies. What do we decide on? Because right now we don't have that set in stone. We just developed our GSP. So the specifics of it, that's what we're requesting that funding for, is how can we get that? How can we move that forward?
Thank you for that. Certainly there's a need for developing our well inventory. I've spent some time in environmental health. Clearly we need to know more about where our wells are and how they're performing. I just want to highlight the proposed we're basically literally being charged with developing the tools of our own discontent when it comes to these management actions. And then demand management actions in the third column. Is that a broader topic that wouldn't involve, well-specific actions? Well, what's a short and long-term demand management action?
So for that one, again, component 3 is just focused on recharge. So not necessarily dependent on wells, but just greater recharge opportunity. So you can see there are some other ones that are not necessarily highlighted, but for example, stormwater recharge, other opportunities to do more stormwater capture recharge in our groundwater basin.
Thank you.
All right. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item on the agenda? Please come up and state your name for the record, and we'll start your 3 minutes. Come on up, Joan.
Joan Moss. I want to thank Marina Delagieras. I became a member of the public officially, and I supplied Marina with a lot of public comment. And the public comment is very necessary for the law to come into being. I want to thank her for her patience. I learned Zoom. I didn't resign, and Marina hung in with me, and I'll try to submit my final comments before the 16th. It was really an experience. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody on Zoom? All right, I'll close public input at this time and bring it back to the board for further action.
Mr. Chair, I offer the resolution. Yeah, resolution.
Resolution has been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes. With that, the resolution has been approved, and thank you for the presentation, and I apologize for murdering your name as well. I know it's Delagianis, and I keep saying Delagiani, so.
Well, that's how you pronounce it in Greek, so.
See, that's what I thought, and I thought I was doing okay on
You're
that.
golden.
The
Thank you.
silent S.
Yeah.
All right, well, with
Thank you
that,
so much.
thank you, and we'll go ahead and take our lunch and come back at 1 o'clock. All right.